Hi everybody, this is Alicia with Alicia Lou Photography. I'm just going to show you how I'm going to retouch and process this image. I apologize if you hear a bunch of background noise because I have two children that are quite loud, but we're going to get into this anyways. So I just opened this, I haven't done anything to it. It's in camera raw. I like the exposure, I like the skin tone, so I'm not going to play with the temperature or the exposure. I'm going to zoom in and see if I see any noise. And I don't, but I like to go up to luminance, which is noise reduction, and just add a little bit. Because that can also, it just kind of softens things. Now I'm going to zoom back out and open the image. This just opens it right into Photoshop. For any of you that have made a video before, is it just like really weird to be talking to nobody but your computer? Because I feel like it's really weird. I hope somebody is going to get something out of this. Okay, so what I do right off the bat is I make a duplicate layer. Command J if you're on a Mac. So this girl is beautiful to begin with. There's really not a lot to do. But this is just the basic retouching that I do with every one of my images. I never get crazy, I just want to enhance what is already there. So I'm going to go, now the method that I am going to use is called frequency separation. I'm not going to teach you how to do that. There are a million YouTube videos to teach you how to do that, but I'll just let you know that is what I'm using. So I actually don't even need a duplicate layer right now. But what I am going to do first is I see a few stray hairs on her face, and so I'm just going to touch that up a little bit because I feel like it's distracting. So I am going to do another duplicate layer. Now I'm just going to use my patch tool and select it and drag it over. Voila, it is gone. There's a few ways that you can do this. You could use the spot healing tool, you could use the clone tool, but I like my patch tool. I don't like how that one worked. Just going to get rid of these little ends. Don't need to get rid of all of them, just the distracting ones. Whoops. Okay. So you zoom back out. That looks a lot better. So now I'm going to show you my frequency separation here. So basically what it does is that when you retouch someone's face, you don't want them to look super smooth and plasticky because you want them to retain the texture and the pores on their face while getting rid of the imperfections that you might not want, such as blemishes and such. So there's my frequency separation. I made an action so I don't have to do it every time. Okay. So I like to start with the color layer. So what it does is it basically separates the skin tone on one layer and the texture on another layer. So if you change the skin tone, it's not going to affect the texture. You can work the two layers independently. So again, I use my patch tool. I'm going to start right here under the eyes. So I'm just going to select this dark patch and then drag it over to a new area that I like. And see how that's nice and smooth now. But again, it retains the texture underneath, which is what I want. Nobody wants to look like a plastic doll. And I just do it as I see fit. I don't think there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. I just get the skin tone evened out. It's another hair I missed. I'll go back and get that. Now this isn't going to be like super glamour retouched because this is not a glamour portrait. This is your regular, this is for a regular portrait client. It's not going to be submitting these to modeling agencies or whatever. So I'm going to go Command J. Actually, no, I'm not. Command Z is your best friend. I want the background layer, and I'm going to create a duplicate background layer, and then I drag it up here to the very top, and then turn it off. On, off. Just because I like to see my progress as I go. So you can already see just by evening out the color, that's where we were, and that's where we are now. So now I'm going to go up to my texture layer, and we are going to remove some blemishes. So if you wanted to, I mean, like I said, this is going to be for a normal portrait client. But like for glamour, you would come in here and you would, you know, edit out these little teeny tiny things, which nobody is ever going to see. But I'm not going to do that because it just doesn't need to happen. So that's really all the blemishes. There's really not that many blemishes on her face. I keep everything that is hers because it makes her who she is. So that is pretty good. I'm happy with that. So just doing that made a big difference. And you can still see all the texture in her face. So now what I like to do is I like to give just a little bit of an airbrush. So I take my dropper tool, I select a skin color that's kind of right in the middle, not the highlights, not the shadows, but just right in the middle. I take my brush, I keep it at about 19-20% opacity, and then I'm just going to lightly brush over. Okay, I'm going to get rid of that hair on the forehead. Again with my patch tool. Okay, another thing that I do is called contouring. I think it's important because it brings out the subject's features that are already there. It just enhances them a little bit. Again, I don't want to make anybody look like they're not who they are, but I just want to bring out the best in them. So I make a new layer, I go to my curves. I'm going to grab this little tool that looks like a hand, and I'm going to select my highlights. Highlights are the bright part of the image. The shadows, are the dark part of the images. So I'm going to work on my highlights, and I'm going to grab right here, click, and drag up. It's going to look crazy. Don't worry. Then I'm going to go Command-I, which inverts it. And then I'm just going to paint it back on where I want it. Click on the layer. Again, your duplicate layer. Curves. Pan tool. Now I'm going to go to Shadows. Click on this part. Drag it down. So now I'm going to click my brush. Keep it at 19. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go over and add, it's dodging and burning, essentially. Add some darkness where there's already shadows, and add some highlights where the light naturally hits her face. And I use my bracket tools on my keyboard to make my brush bigger or smaller. It's a lot faster than going up there. That opacity is a little too much. I'm going to bring this down. A little bit up here. Filling in your eyebrows when you're getting your pictures taken makes a world of difference. You wouldn't believe how much of a difference it makes. And if you wanted to get real crazy, like if you were shooting it, in the studio at like a f10, f8, and you're going to zoom in and you're going to see, every single thing, then you could go in and, darken the outside of the iris, you could darken the eyelashes, then you go in and brighten up the inside, do all the highlights. But because I shot this at like a 1.8, you're not going to get as much detail and sharpness as if you were shooting at a higher aperture. So I don't need to do all of that. So now this is just the curves shadow adjustment. Subtle, but it makes a big difference. Now I'm going to go to my highlights. And I'm just going to add a little bit of highlight. I like to do a little bit under the brow. As you can see, she did an awesome job with her makeup to begin with, so there's not a lot for me to do. I'm just enhancing what's already there. Oh, I forgot the lipstick. I love when my clients wear lipstick. I actually bring it up a little bit higher, the opacity, with the lips. That might be a little too much. So I'm going to take my eraser, go down a little bit. That's better. Now I'm back on highlights. Again, just putting it where the light naturally hit anyways. So let's bring this up here. So there's the difference. I'll zoom in a little bit. Again, just enhancing what's already there. I don't want anybody ever to be self-conscious about the way they look afterwards and look at themselves and be like, oh wow, I don't look like that. Because you do. Okay, so now that I'm done with that, oh actually, because this is kind of a tight I didn't do this with the final image that I posted on Facebook earlier, but I'll show you because you can do this. With hair, I like to add some highlights and definition to the hair sometimes. So I'm on my highlights layer right now. Maybe I'll just rename this highlights for you and shadows to make it easier. So there's my brush. I bring the opacity up a little ways because I'm messing with the hair, not the skin. And then I just go over again where I can see the lighter areas in her hair and just enhance that. We're going to turn that off so you can see. Get a little bit too much. Always get the face framing pieces. And now the shadows. And this is, of course, all subjective. Everything is. It's just what you like to do and how you like your things to look. Okay. So there's the before, there's the after. And this is just how I process 95% of my images. Now I'm going to add, like I said, I really like the skin tones. The exposure is fine. I don't need to do anything like that. So everything that I do is just enhancing what's already here. So I'm going to add some contrast just to give a little bit of pop to the image. About 15. And then I'm going to go into my selective color. And this is cool. Selective colors. Like I'm on the red channel right now. And this is a fun way to, you can change colors, you can enhance colors, you can tone things. So this just changes anything that's red. So you can add cyan, take it away, all kinds of things you can do. I'm just seeing if I want to do anything to it. I probably don't, because I just like the color of her sweater the way it is. Ooh, but adding a little bit of yellow looks good. Not that much though. And I might go into my levels, make the background just a little bit darker, but I don't want that on her face, so I'm just going to brush it off. Get the opacity on my eraser up a little bit. So there's that. I'm done. Now I'm going to save this. And then I'll open back up the unedited one just so you can see the difference. My computer is being so slow tonight. So there's the before. Oh, whoops. I just exited out of that one. And there's the after. Not a big, huge difference, just more polished and refined. So I hope you enjoyed this video and you got something out of it. Now go have fun.